Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Nest Egg Builder Show. My name is Jonna Hudson, and I'm filling in for Peggy today. I work with Peggy at the Nest Egg Builder. And today we have Lisa Landry with you. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Lisa before we get started. Lisa is a multifamily general partner and asset manager, managing $35 million in assets through her multifamily investment firm Above and Beyond Multifamily, and is also known as the interior designer of multifamily investing. She is the CEO of Landry Designs, an award-winning interior design firm in Texas that specializes in adding value to properties across the country. Her team has won 35 international design awards and has been published nationally 28 times. They have also been voted best interior designer in the area for the past 12 years in a row. Lisa comes from a family of entrepreneurs, real estate investors, remodelers, and realtors. In her free time, she's a bit of an adventure junkie who enjoys hiking, backpacking, mountain biking, glacier climbing, skydiving. She's a resident of Fort Worth, Texas, and she loves helping increase the value of multifamily properties. Welcome, Lisa, and thank you for joining us today. You'll have to come on up and go hiking and climbing up here. I'm in the
Oh,
Columbia River Gorge.
that would be awesome. I'm sure it's absolutely beautiful there. I've never been there.
So if you want to go ahead and take it away.
Okay, I'll get started. Let me share screen. I'm excited to be with y'all today. We're going to have an educational um, session based on how design, which is what we do with Landry Designs, how design strategies can drive investor returns, how we can elevate returns by using design. And we're going to look at a lot of before and afters and talk about all of the tips and tricks that we use as designers on multifamily properties to elevate the value of the property. And just to let you know a little bit about my background in multifamily, I started my company about 26 years ago, I guess, and we started out in residential. And then we started doing some commercial projects for the homeowners who owned businesses that wanted us to go work on their commercial properties also. They had businesses that they needed done, and so we started adding commercial. And then about 15 years ago, a multifamily property management company reached out to me and said that they had 45 properties that they managed, this property management company, and 10 of them needed major CapEx work done in that following year. And could I help them? And I just said, well, I've never done multifamily before, but we're happy to take a look. And so I went and looked at some properties in Dallas, and I was prepared to see beautiful apartment buildings. And I'd lived in an apartment at one time, and I just thought that's what they would be, but they weren't. They were all B and C class properties that were value add projects that needed a lot of work done to them. And so I looked at them and realized that this is really what we do in residential and commercial, kind of a combination of the two. So we helped that property management company decorate and redo, even like some remodeling and that kind of thing on these 10 properties that year. And they turned out amazing, and they were all B and C class. And we ended up having 5 of them professionally photographed. And I entered them into a design contest that was judged by magazine editors across the country. And there wasn't even a multifamily category. There was just commercial. So I added them in the commercial category. And they actually swept the category, and they won first, second, and third in the whole country, for commercial. So that was really exciting. And we thought, well, we just love multifamily. So we started doing more and more and more of those. And we've done hundreds of multifamily projects across the country now. So we are based in Texas, but we help with decorating and elevating these properties all over the US. So let's go ahead and get started. So that's our goal always when we're looking at a new property, is how can we increase the value through design? And not only value just for the owners, but for the LP investors also. About maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I got really interested in investing on my own and into multifamily, since I had learned so much about it over these 15 years, and decided to go in as a GP. And so I'm a GP on 2 deals now, both in Dallas. That's the $35 million of assets that we manage. And I'm an asset manager on both of those deals. So I'm very involved in kind of the day-to-day operations of it. And I think it's been a super benefit to our customers from Landry Designs, because I train all of our design team on all of these additional elements that I'm learning from behind the scenes. So it's a good combination of what the ownership sees and then, from a decorating side, what a design team sees. So we're going to take some concrete action steps when we're looking at a new property. The leasing office is the very first thing. We always talk about it's like the hub of the wheel. That's the first impression space that residents see or potential residents see when they come in. And so we want to make sure that that's great. That's also where your on-site team works. So we want to talk about that. We want to think about exterior paint and renovations because that's, again, visually what people see when they drive up. Also thinking about amenities, what kinds of amenities could you add and what kinds of updates could you do? And then also thinking about the unit interiors themselves that these residents are going to live in and what does your model unit look like if you have one. They're all super important. So let's talk about the leasing office first. And these are some of the things that we're looking at before we ever start thinking about design in any form or fashion is every little thing that a potential resident will see as they pull up to your leasing office. So, first of all, is that walkway clean? I was on site at a property this morning and they are supposed to be blowing every morning. The maintenance team is supposed to be blowing the property every morning because there's leaves just like everywhere. And they did not blow this morning. So that's why those on-site visits are so important is to catch, if something's getting missed. Because when people walk up, yes, you can clean off the porch area, but if the walkway's not clean, then it just doesn't look well maintained. Is the exterior rug clean? Are there leaves on that? Is it dirty? Is it straight? Is it freshly painted, like the entranceway? Even the door itself, is that freshly painted? Does the door squeak when you open it? That's a big sign that the maintenance is not great on that property potentially. So we always are checking for that and making notes as we go through. When we're looking at a new property from Landry design standpoint, we share this list of things that we found when we go on site with the ownership team. So then once you get inside, are you greeted immediately? We require on our properties that someone always stands to greet, that the on-site team stands to greet someone new that comes in the door, and that should happen immediately. And what does the visual impression look like when somebody comes in? You have 15 seconds. They've determined you have 15 seconds to have someone decide whether they might even consider living in that apartment community or not. So you have that 15 seconds of them looking around. What do I see? What do I smell? What do I hear? Does it look like somewhere I might want to live? And it's either a good impression or not so good. So we want to make sure that that visual is really strong. And is the trash hidden? That's one thing that a lot of times when we go in, we see trashes around, like kitchen trashes that are exposed with all kinds of bags of Whataburger and things like that coming out of them. It smells like Whataburger in the office. Are their desks cluttered? So all these tiny things, they may seem like they're not that important and that we're being picky, but that's what separates a good property from a not so great property. And to elevate it, this kind of stuff does not cost hardly anything, but it makes a big impression on potential residents. All right, so let's take a look at some properties now. That's the fun part. This is what we normally see when we go into a Class B or Class C multifamily leasing office. Something that looks like it's pretty dated. Maybe the on-site team thinks they like to decorate and they just go out and buy some stuff locally and put it up and hang some art. And you see the cords are exposed to lamps and, just does not look up to date. What we find is when people live in apartments, a lot of times they want to buy a house, but they can't afford to buy a house right now. So they go look at model units a lot. And that's not model units, model homes a lot. That's what we want these leasing offices to look like when they come in, like a model home would look. It should be really up to date, kind of a modern, interesting feel, unless that doesn't go with the property. We're looking at the tenant base, we're looking at the surrounding properties. All of those elements go into the design that we would recommend for a property. So this is the before, here's the after. And I'll show you before and after next to each other in just a minute, but taking something very, very basic and not doing any construction here other than, and I'll show you the before again. Do you see this big highlighted red area? Other than adding some wood and like a herringbone pattern, and their contractor, their on-site team, did that, for an accent architectural feature. So let me show you. Here's another angle of it. And so new furniture, new lighting, new art, new paint. This is new flooring in this case, and it's still LVT, luxury vinyl tile, so it's very inexpensive, but I'll just show you the before and after. Sometimes we can keep the flooring, and we do try to save budget wherever we possibly can, but in this case, the floor was in really poor condition. It had been there for so long. It's very orange. It looks very country, and that's not the look that the property was going for. This ownership team had just bought this property, and they were rebranding it, changing the name, changing the signage, and wanted a much more elevated look. So we did a coffee bar, like a beverage station over here with everything hidden. Again, high-end looking elements, not super expensive furniture for a B or C class property, but high-end looking is what we're going for. And you can see how the black trim, painting the trim black, makes such a big difference. It just looks much more dramatic and high contrast. This is another one. This one, again, is very common to what we see. This looks like somebody just went to a furniture store, bought a sofa and a love seat, a table and a lamp, and just stuck it in there. And this was their leasing area. Like, this was what people saw when they first came into this property. And this was a nice property, actually. This was a B-class property. So we redid it like this and just completely elevated the look again, created more contrast. We did a dark espresso brown on the walls in this case. We changed the flooring from the carpet that was here to tile. They already had wood floors here, and the wood was in really good condition, but this was just too much of a contrast. It did not look nice in person. So we had them change it to a big oversized tile. That's another trick, is if you do use tile, kind of a bigger size tile is always nice to use. Lighting, we're always looking at mid-level lighting. How can we get light in the middle of the space? Because that's what makes you feel invited into a space, and it feels more cozy. Overhead lights cast shadows on our face and on everything that we do, and they make you look older and tired. And so we always work to get mid-level lighting in a space and ask the on-site team to turn the lamps on every morning when they get there, and then turn everything off, before they leave. So here's the before and after side by side, exactly same space, no construction. We even kept the same ceiling fan. It was just paint, furnishings, and changing the flooring. Here's another one. This is the back area, kind of a loungy area where they had events for residents. And there's cool architecture here. This space looks interesting. Like, these boxes, on the ceiling are neat, but the colors are just not good at all, very dated. And actually, these draperies were custom made. They were very expensive, but we don't do puddling on the floor anymore. So, our goal was, how can we save as much as possible, but still make it look great? So here's the after. And in this case, we had these draperies hemmed so that they're right off the floor. That's what we always want. And then they're not getting dog hair or any kind of hair or dirt or whatever underneath them in that little puddle. Had all this just repainted, all new art. We set up this whole big conference table here at the back. We try to make an area where if the on-site management team and the GP team want to have meetings together, they have a place where they could have a meeting of some sort. But you could also pull these chairs away and use this as like a buffet table for events for residents. The other thing that we're always looking at is, what's the color of the brick outside or the stucco or whatever it is, and make sure that whatever we do inside is complementary to that. So orange, which is what the brick was, on the color wheel is opposite of blue, which is complementary to it. So we pulled blue in, and then we added this kind of chartreuse as an accent. Here's the two side by side. And then here's another example of one that was pretty themey. This one had a very rustic sort of Western theme, which was in style years ago, but now this property, they wanted to elevate it and freshen it. They buy and hold their properties, and they, every 10 years, completely redo like their furnishings and that kind of thing. So it'd been 10 years. In this case, the first thing I noticed when I walked in was this mantle was way too small for this big giant wall. And so we recommended doing something larger there and then just doing new furnishings. You see how there's no drama on this wall. There's no drama on the ceiling, although it's a great space. We did want to try to keep the flooring in this case if we could and keep the stone. So here's the after. And we were able to keep the flooring, did all new furnishings here. Again, used that black paint. We use a color called Caviar by Sherwin-Williams a lot. It's a real soft black to be able to add some contrast to the space. We pulled that black in also on chandeliers. There's another chandelier just like this on the other side of the room. It was a very big room actually, and we had a big dining table on the other side. Opened this fireplace up because they had like a screen in front of it. Just put birch logs in it just for visual. Had this larger mantle made, and again, this has kind of a red brick outside, and they had blue paint on their building, and they weren't going to repaint. So we pulled in the oranges and the blues to make sure that everything was cohesive, which also worked with the flooring because it had a very orange color palette. So here's the two side by side, just so you can see. And one thing to be aware of is, do you see how this dark furniture, it really kind of sucks all the light out of the room. You know, it becomes like a dark hole, this dining table over here. So lightening and brightening, if you have a darker floor, is a good tool to use. We did have the light wall here, which was nice, and we had the lighter ceiling. And we kept a lighter wall here. We changed it to a more grayish tone, which pulled from the rug as well. But using the light sofa, the light table to kind of pull that ivory out of the stone was helpful in this case. This is another one that this was a big remodel actually. This flooring I'm sure was extremely expensive. And when we walked in, the new owner had just purchased this property and they asked if there was any way we could keep it. And we just said, it's not going to ever look good. It's just like your eyes just don't know where to go. It's too busy, you know, for a leasing office. And can you imagine working in this environment? It would be very difficult. But they decided to open up this wall on the far left where there's just like a little window over here. And so we worked with their contractor to do all of that. And so I'll show you that in the after. So here's the after. So we went with a very light colored luxury vinyl tile floor. The color palettes are changing going forward for colors. We've had gray for so long for flooring, kind of a darker gray, almost the color of this tile that we put in. We built this actual fireplace, completely rebuilt the fireplace, or built a fireplace, added it with an electric fireplace here. But we were doing this color flooring for so long. Now we're using more of this palomino color, like the color of a palomino horse. So it's more of a light blondish taupey color. And that's a good sign if you see that, you know, this particular property knows what's trending going forward. So we pulled kind of taupes in here on the trim in this case, did all the light flooring, opened this up completely. So now it flows into this next space, which again can be a conference room, a meeting room, or an event room, you know, for resident parties. The other thing to think about is rugs. Rugs do help with sound absorption a lot, and they need to be big enough to encompass areas. Wherever the rug stops is where the room stops visually. So that's a little tip to always make sure your rug is big enough. So here's the before and after, and it just feels so much lighter and airier without all of that crazy flooring. This is another tip that you can add a business center to a space if you have an extra little zone. We're always thinking about what kind of amenities can we add for the website. And in this case, they had this little niche, this little cutout area that they didn't use at all. There were 2 chairs in there, but it was pretty deep. And so we asked the on-site team, does anybody ever sit over here? They said, no, it never gets used. They had this long post on the fan. It just looked not good. So in this case, we recommended converting it to a business center where people could bring their own laptops in, or they could sit and fill out paperwork, or just sit and have a snack or a meal if they were having an event. So that's what we did in this case. And you see here that this wood, the ceiling and all of this lower bump out area is kind of a maple colored wood. The ownership team was very open to whatever we suggested, and we recommended painting all of that black. So that's what they did here. And we also took this little bench, which was right here. There was nothing on it. We have our bag on it right now, but there was nothing there. And we converted that to all black and added some cool pendant lights and some accessories so that you come in the front door right beyond this actually, and that's what you see when you first come in now. This is, I've always put this slide in here for the friendly staff because I do think it's so important that someone is greeted, as soon as they walk in. I secret shop a lot of properties and go in, and I can't tell you how many times no one greets you at all. You're just in a line of people just waiting, or they're just on the phone or whatever. They don't even wave, they don't, say anything. So again, on my properties, we require that they stand and greet someone. The other thing that we find a lot is when you come into a leasing office, and in this case, the door is to the left of these two blinds. It's like right over here. So this was set up differently when we purchased this property. And when you come in, the desk used to be right here. It was the first thing you saw was the desk. And we don't like the desk to be the first thing that you see because that's not a decorative thing. It's sometimes messy, whatever. We want it to be the lounge. We want you to come in and have a sense of a residential kind of space. So we always set up some type of little lounge. This is a C-class property, a very small leasing office. There's one person inside, one person outside, which is the maintenance guy. Very small, but we still made it look great. And you come in and you see the lounge, and then you turn left and, see Martha right there. Again, beverage station we think is super important. This has a little mini fridge, a little microwave. She can host events. There's coffee. One of her tricks is to make a cup of coffee in the morning. She doesn't even drink coffee, but she'll make a little cup of coffee over there so that when people come in, it smells like coffee in the space. It's just inviting. The next little area to think about is exterior paint. And this is something that Landry Designs we help with all the time. We do all these exterior renderings for ownership teams, and they'll send us, a picture, or we'll go out and look at it if it's local. We're in the DFW area in Texas. And then we render how we think it could look. And we usually give several different options. So this, was one complete look, and this was a completely different look. This one on the right would be less expensive because they weren't having to add all of the planks to the balconies, but we like to give different options and then they can decide. The other thing is if you're replacing a roof, we always recommend getting a designer involved because the color of the roof is super, super important. And it's such a big expense. So it's well worth having a designer help you select the color of the roof that you're going to replace. This is an older property. This is a C minus probably. And this we recommended if they could budget for it to paint the exterior of the building because the building itself looked so busy. The brick looked so busy, and they went for it. So painting it all white. They had these cool little awnings, these little Asian looking awnings that you didn't even really notice before. Now they really pop out. And then, they had the black shutters already. So it wasn't a huge challenge to make it over. The other thing that we're looking at when we come on site as Landry Designs is what does the signage look like? Are you keeping the name? Are you changing the name? What do you want your logo to be? We help with rebranding all the time. Here's another one. This was the before, this sort of yellow color all over. Beautiful architecture in this building, but your eye didn't really know where to go. So making sure that the color contrast that you use really pulls out the existing architecture we think is key. This is not one that we did. This is one that I just pulled for you to see that we don't have this type of apartment building in our area, this style, but I know that there are this style like in California and kind of in some different areas. I just want you to see that you can do neutrals, all neutrals, and then just pick any accent color and throw a little of that on the building. And that's something very easy to change in 5 years if you want to go with navy and change your logo, or orange or yellow or any of the other colors that you might want to choose. We're doing a lot of murals. We have artists that can come in and do murals on these big giant walls. It's such a really inexpensive way to garner like drama for your property. So these kinds of photos, when you put them on your website or when people are driving by and see them, or if they're on your Facebook page, this is what separates your property from other properties. They're going to remember when they go look at 5 properties in one day to determine where they're going to live, they can say, oh, that was that one that had that cool mural out in that courtyard area, that kind of thing. Same thing with the leasing office. It could be, oh, remember that one that had the really blue and orange leasing office and that real friendly girl that, talked to us. The other thing to add is accent fencing, like we were talking about before. And most owners that do this just leave the railing here and they just put the planks right over it. It does make a big difference in how it looks visually. It just feels nicer having the nice wood. And you can pick the wood stain. I would definitely recommend having a designer help with this as well, because the wood stain is what drives the design. And I can't tell you how many times we come on site and someone's already done this and the wood stain's not the right color. It doesn't look good with the property or with the siding or with the brick, because it can be orangey, it can be brown, it can be gray, it can be blackish. It can be beige. There's lots of different color options. Here's another example where the first one that I showed you had the gap between, and then this one is more solid. Okay, and then let's just talk about amenities real quick. We are always looking at what is on site that we could help with, that we could make look better. And in this case, it was a pool area that just looked terrible. It was just in really bad condition. It hadn't been maintained. They had this big giant fence. They had this big giant concrete wall on the other side. They needed all new furniture. They wanted to build a pergola. And so that's what we helped with. So here's the after of the space. So completely redoing the decking, choosing all that tile, the coping, the inside of the pool color, all the furniture. We had recommended an artist to come in and paint a mural on this big concrete wall. And again, that made such a big difference. And then also painting that fence really light to blend with the decking made a big difference. Also the pergola, a lot of times people will build these arbors and then just pick the wrong color, like stain it orangey or whatever, and it's just not ideal for the property. So when we're helping with renderings, that helps give you an idea of what it can look like. And even choosing like this stack stone for this grill station they built, choosing these trash cans, every little thing that you're spending money on, it's very helpful to have a design team help to make sure that every dollar you spend is right. You don't have to spend it again. Here's the before and after of that space. Here's the mural on the right, so you can see that more close up. This is a different property. This is an after, just to show you that we don't typically recommend like going to Home Depot or whatever and getting a bunch of beige chase lounges. It just does nothing for the property. It doesn't elevate the property in any way. It doesn't look good on the website, doesn't draw people in, doesn't make your residents want to renew. So we like color. We typically will choose a strong color of some sort to add drama to the space. And people always ask me, oh, the pools don't really get used, do they? Does anybody ever really swim? Well, no, they don't get used that often. You can have events, resident events there, but when you're touring potential residents, that's when you want to show it off. You just walk right past it. Look at our sparkling pool. It's just another amenity to keep stacking and stacking and stacking for that resident to want to live there. Same thing for fitness rooms that don't get used very often, but it's there. It's one of your amenities you can call out. This property, this was just a green space and the property didn't have a bark park. So we turned it into a bark park and we fenced it all the way around. We just added some black chain link fence, which always looks better than silver chain link fence. And, put some grass seeds down, added a little bit of toys, added a cool sign, and now it gets used all the time. You have to also put like a pet waste this receptacle in the space so that they, do pick up after themselves. And you do have to have your on-site team, your maintenance team, check it every morning and usually like maybe even twice a day because it needs to be picked up. This is a small space, so you can't just leave it if they don't pick it up themselves. Playground areas, we help with selecting what playground equipment should go in this space. What size, do a scale drawing or something to see how big should it be? What colors should it be? What should it include? What is your tenant base? Or would this have been better because it's mostly adults to do like a hammock park or something like that? So it's always playing with it like a puzzle. Where should we put the money? This is a fitness center, and this is the after. But just to show you, here's another mural, and they can have really big impact for not a lot of money. This is another one. You can do cool things with the carpet. This is just an outdoor area, and again, a designer helping select this stone, this stain, this stain, this finish, this finish. There's a lot of pieces and parts here. What color should the grills be? What color should these tables be? What color should the concrete be? They seem like minor things, but they play a big role in how it looks when it's finished. You can have children's play areas if it's more of an A-class property typically. You can have sports fields, sports courts. These sail tarps are really popular now. We just put one of these, an orange one actually, on another property to create some shade in a courtyard area. And then unit interiors and model units. This is a model unit before, and does this look appealing for somebody to want to live there? I don't think it does. So looking at what can we do to make this look really great. Do you see this fur down over here on the right? A lot of times we're recommending to take those out if possible. And that's what we did in this case. So here's the after. And just so you can kind of see a few different things, we did change the flooring here, and it was carpet and we changed it to hard surface throughout, but it's again just luxury vinyl tile. This was done about 3 years ago. And this property is actually for sale right now. It's under contract. But after this is when we started going to the more palomino color floor. This still looks great, but little things like, let me go back to the before. Oh, you can't see it in this photo. I think you can see it in the after. These were shelves that were just plywood, and we replaced them with stained wood shelves. That little thing, that costs like maybe $100, but that makes a big difference in the way it looks when people come in to see it. Taking out that fur down, changing, or adding pendant lights, gray cabinetry instead of white, adding a micro hood over the stove. That's a big amenity because a lot of times these kitchens are very small and there's no room really to put your microwave on top of your countertop. So if you can get it over the stove, that saves them a lot of room. So here's the before and after, just so you can see. This is the same property, and this was the before. Do you see how they had this little area of LVT and then carpet, which looks terrible? And this was painted, the fireplace was painted this red color. They had the screen, and then they had the mirror. The mirror is nice because it does bounce light around the room, but we changed it to be this. We actually painted this the gray, which went more with our color palette, put the birch logs in, changed the mirror to a black framed one, just opened it up and did more modern things. It's good for them to be able to see furniture in the space so they can visualize how they could actually live in the space. So there's the before and after. Here's another angle of the kitchen, just so you can see. This is inside the kitchen. Here's that micro hood that we talked about. This is the bedroom before, so just very dated. Here's the after. Using less furniture is really better. Bigger furniture, but less furniture, so that it looks more spacious and open. This just looked pretty busy before. Also, just a quick note here on model units. In the bedrooms, sometimes we will keep carpet and just put luxury vinyl tile everywhere else because carpet's less expensive in many cases, and it's also more sound absorbing for their bedroom, and it's also softer underfoot when you get out of the bed, in the morning. Just an option. Here's the before and after of a bath. So this is just, Formica countertops that were resurfaced. We resurfaced them much lighter. So I always recommend going the lightest color you can on the countertop resurfacing. We changed the mirror to black. We changed the lights. We painted the cabinets gray. We went in and changed the shower rod to an arched shower rod, a bowed one, so that it gives you more room inside the shower. We changed the shower head to this one with a gooseneck so that it gives more height for someone who's taller. So those are little things that the leasing agent needs to be sure and point out to potential residents as they're walking in. Okay, so that's kind of the overview. I have my connection on the next slide, but I know Peggy likes that to be go through you potentially. So that's just an overview of everything sort of that Landry Designs does, and happy to answer any questions. Anybody? Ted.
Probably after talking to me, you should wind up looking really, really good. But one of my curiosities is how do you approach, uh, let's say, selling to a man versus a woman relative
Yes.
to your design ideas?
Are you talking about if the man was the property owner?
Because in many cases, your befores and afters were just different. Not one obviously better than the other. They were just different.
Yeah, I would say most multifamily um, professionals are men, probably 75%. That's what we have found in the industry. And I've been a multifamily owner for 5 years now, and I go to all kinds of events. I'm in a mentorship program. There's about maybe 20 or 25% women there. So on the teams that are making these decisions for design purposes, typically it's about 75% men on the team, and we like to have everybody sit in on the call who's involved. So it's any of the asset managers, anybody who's involved in the finances, the regional manager from the property management company. A lot of times will sit in, sometimes the on-site manager. And a lot of times those people, the regional and the on-site, might be women. So we really present the same. We've really done our research on what is the property itself look like? What are your goals for it? How long are you going to hold it? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to elevate the tenant base? What is the tenant base now? What do you want it to be? What does that community around it look like? What do the other properties look like? We don't want to look like any other property near us. So all of those come into play, and the architecture of the property. And if it's a tenant base that's younger, then we're thinking more modern. If it's a tenant base that's a lot of professionals, we're thinking very clean and streamlined. If it's a tenant base that's families, lots and lots of families, then we're thinking maybe more fun and colorful. So it really depends on all of those elements, not so much are we presenting to a man or to a woman. Now, I thought you were going to ask about potential residents who come in, because
that really was what I was asking about.
Okay, so potential residents.
Your customers.
Yes, which is not our customer actually, but it would be the business owner's customer. From Landry Design standpoint, the ownership team is our customer, and their customer is the tenant. But yes, from a tenant standpoint, women are the ones who typically make the final decision. Like if they feel not good about the property in some way, you're probably not going to live there. You should both feel good about the property, but women in particular sometimes just don't feel safe there, or they just feel like something's not right. And so, it is important to appeal to that side of things, the safety side of things, how things look visually, all of those kinds of elements. But we have a lot of men residents in my properties that I own that are very appreciative of great design. So it really just depends on the person. It's a good question.
Hey, Lisa, can you stop sharing for
Yes.
a minute so we can see you a little bit better? I have a question,
Right.
and it's on smells. So when you buy old buildings, um, oftentimes there'll be a smell. It will smell appropriately aged or whatever. And where is the smell usually? I know the carpet can be one, but where other places can smells hide?
Yeah, that's a great question too. In the sheetrock, easily, in the paint, in the ceiling, everywhere, in the wood, everywhere. So If we do have the issue of odor, then everything needs to be primed with a sealant of some sort that seals out odor prior to the new paint going on. And then if we still have an odor, then you bring in ozone machines and just leave them for a few days, and that helps neutralize the air and gets rid of smells. So there are even foggers that can be used by contractors that really dissipate, smoking smells, pet odors, those kinds of things as well.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I enjoyed it. But I would never attempt to do the interior decorating myself, right? I'm more of a business person. Maybe I was a tomboy as a kid, right? And I will tell you what really appealed to me in the pictures. I wasn't looking so much at like the color, the design, is that it opened up the rooms and made them look so much bigger so that you could actually live in them.
Yes.
Right? It was more, you could actually see yourself doing it. But I'm always on the underwriting team or something else instead of the property management team for that reason.
Yeah. And it's because the property management team does in some cases start this process, but it's usually the ownership team. Like they're the ones who usually reach out to us, the ownership team, and then they introduce us to the property management team. So we can get a lead from somebody either way, and it's great either way, but usually they work in conjunction with each other, and so we're gonna meet both of them, either way.
So, and this is a ballpark, right? Like, so multifamily, I bought a multifamily property, let's say 16 units. So it's not a huge facility, and I have a CapEx budget. How much more from CapEx when you're not using a designer should you add to use a designer?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. It's not necessarily, I don't think the designer part of it is really that expensive. It's more, what are you buying? And the way Landry Designs works is we sell all the furnishings that go inside the space. So what really drives the budget is how big is the space? How big is the space, the leasing office, let's say, or the model unit or whatever? How many rooms are in it? How many bathrooms are in it? How many people work in it? Because we provide the desks and all of that as well, or beds if it's, a model unit. So whenever we do a complimentary consultation with someone, it's a Zoom call is how we start out always. If they're not local, even if they are local, we can do a Zoom call because there's a lot of people that want to be on the call. So we assess that and learn a lot about the property. And then we have a menu of services that's based on size and also based on quality because we can provide the furnishings that are very budget friendly starter, which you might use if it's a real low budget. And then there's kind of mid range and then there's kind of a higher end range. And it's funny because it's not just like ABCD quality, like for, property class, you might think that, but there are times when we've worked with a group and they'll buy a property and they'll have a very small budget to do their first property leasing office, let's say, and we do as much as we can. And then on their next property they buy, they put more in their budget for that so that we can really do it right because they find that as soon as it's done, their occupancy starts going up. There's three things we always say. It's like the trifecta with the leasing office. First of all, you want to get your occupancy up. So how do you get new tenants coming in? Second, you want renewals. So how do you get your current tenants to renew? Because, it looks so great. People always say, well, nobody uses the leasing office. They pay online. We're on site all the time, and that's like a revolving door. People are coming in constantly. They want to just see the manager. They want to say hi. They want to bring them a cookie. They want to get a cookie. They want to make a payment. They want to tell you something's wrong with their toilet. They just like the face-to-face. So that's like a revolving door. So it does need to look good. But the third and kind of surprising hidden thing that people don't really think about is this is where your on-site team works. They're here 8 hours a day. And as soon as we redo that leasing office and make it look amazing and make it have good traffic pass and make it be efficient when they work, your turnover goes down. So your retention, if your on-site team goes up. So we're always looking at all of those things when we're making a decision about budget. The other thing we find is that with the industry being primarily male, they put budget a lot of times in their pro forma and in their business plan in CapEx projects, like big CapEx projects like asphalt and fences and lighting and construction and things like that. And they forget to leave the budget for the design portion, the furnishings. And so once we get started with someone, a lot of times they have to steal it from something else, but then the next time on their next project, they allocate a correct portion for design and furnishings. And then their properties get up to occupancy super quickly. Most of our properties that we work on, the occupancy is always above 90. We try to, 95 is always your goal. And they sell very quickly when they do get ready to sell because the properties just look great.
Okay, any more, does anybody else have questions for Lisa?
So curiosity, I guess, would be, it's kind of a rhetorical one, is how come your place never looks the same with my furniture in it as it does with yours?
Oh, on the model? Like on the model unit? Like you mean, like if we've furnished a model and then they move their stuff in? That kind of your question?
Yeah. What fraction of the folks that the residents that you're doing are going to, let's say, are going to bring in their own furniture as opposed to getting yours?
Yeah, and we're not selling directly to the residents. We're providing the furnishings for the leasing office and the model unit. So we're not selling to the residents. The residents could certainly call us if they need something because we do residential also. But usually people will not hire a designer when they're, just in an apartment. Unless it's a high-end apartment like a Class A apartment, and we do those all the time. But I think what's good is once it's done, you need to have it professionally photographed. Let's say it's the model unit, have it professionally photographed, put it on the website so that you can draw people in. And it's a great way to show it. Like this is how your furniture can lay out. Like go try to find a sofa that looks about like this. Go try to find a chair that looks about like this. It's about this size that's in the picture. It gives them a starting point. Like we know, okay, well, a queen size bed fits in here because that's what they have in the model unit. A king won't really, a twin is fine, or maybe two twins or something like that. So I think it just gives them, something good to look at. The other thing is people ask me a lot of times, should I have a model or not? And I know it depends on the size of the property, but I have a property that's 108 units and we have a model. And I think the benefit of it is it gives you longer with that potential resident to build a relationship. You're touring them around the property. I mean, you could show them a vacant unit, obviously, and spend some time there. But it does give you, when you walk into a more residential space that's furnished, that's not echoey, it gives them a sense of how it would feel to live there. The leasing agent can talk to them more, ask more questions, get a little rapport going. So I think it's a tool that can be used.
So Lisa, along that, before I jump, Chris has a question, but before I jump off of Ted's question, it just is like, could that be an amenity, especially on a higher end apartment where, now you can go in a hotel and you can order the bed if you like it for your own home. I mean,
Right.
could you set
sure.
that up as an amenity where tenants could literally buy or lease or the furniture that
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, and you can stage them. You can have furniture rented. You could provide some furnished. Like sometimes you'll provide furnished units for traveling nurses and things like that. So that's definitely a business model that could be, considered for any property if they want to. The trick is once you've provided furnishings, it's just like with Airbnb or anything, those furnishings can get trashed. So you're going to have to replace it probably when you get new tenants in there.
Well, that's why I thought that's why a lot of people don't furnish their apartments, right? That's why I thought selling the furniture to them, and then if they trash it, they
Yes.
take it with them. But on high end, so my daughter was on the high end for a while. They buy new furniture when they go to new apartments because it doesn't fit,
That's true. That's very true.
right? So I
Yeah.
think the model, an untapped model, I don't know. Hey,
Yeah.
Chris had a question.
Yes, Chris.
We have a QR code from our designers, so they can buy whatever they want. So that might be a
Nice.
revenue stream for you, at least. So
Oh, From your designer. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's a little placket right there. And if
Yes,
you want, you just take a picture of your phone and everything on there. It goes right to your website, so you could profit from that.
that's a
Might
good
be a
idea.
little, maybe something for you to think of.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that tip.
Yeah, great job today, and I loved all your designs. But do you ever work with the science of colors too?
Yes, and it depends on what you mean by that, but
Well,
we are,
I know this, like, so
yes,
in my other businesses, we have purple. Our websites are all with a purple base because people buy more if it's purple, on a purple than a black or say a gray or green or whatever. So,
yes.
and it works, but I didn't know like, because some of the accents and stuff, I love the black trim and everything like that. It's looked really good. But then I noticed you guys favor the browns and grays.
Well, it might just be those pictures that I chose because we've really
Yeah,
done,
I was just curious, and
yeah.
I was thinking
But
you
we
guys
are
look
always
at that.
looking at primarily what does the outside look like if it's
Mhm.
brick, and are they
Yeah.
changing that and open to it? If not, we're stuck with that color. We have to work around that color. If it's stucco, can we paint it? Can we not? If it's siding, can we paint it? Can we not? That's our number one driver. But we are also looking at, everybody loves blue. It's a calming color. Green is a nature color. Red stimulates your appetite. Purple symbolizes royalty. All of those elements we do think about, and how can we bring the outdoors in, maybe if the view is really good, or is the pool right there and it's turquoise. Well, turquoise and orange look great together. Can we bring some
Mhm.
orange inside? So yes, color theory for sure, we're always looking at.
Good, good. And do you guys do resorts by chance?
We haven't really done resorts. We've done, big Class A properties with big giant pools that are like a resort,
Mm,
but not actual resorts.
okay, I'm buying one, so that's
Are you?
yeah. It's,
Where, Chris?
in upstate New York in the Catskill Mountains. It's
Nice.
38 cabins. We have to rebuild them all, so it's going
Oh,
to be
wow.
put in a wedding venue and
Oh my
a
goodness.
spa, and
Wow.
then
We're doing several properties in Pennsylvania right now, and we've never worked in Pennsylvania before, so I'll be there
really
next
cool
week.
because you're
So
in
Chris, if
DFW,
you're
right?
doing that much work on a place, why would you not use a designer
We have an architect and
like
everything like
like
that. I
like
didn't get
Lisa?
that far yet, so
Yeah, and that's a good point because the architect usually does all the beginning things and a lot of
right.
renderings and things like that. And then that's usually when we come in, is once the architect has kind of gotten going, if you need assistance with material selections,
Yeah, we're getting there. That's
colors,
why I was asking. So yeah.
yeah, all of that, then we can help with that. And then if you need help with furnishing toward the end, then we do that as well. So we don't do any kind of construction. We just work with your
Yeah,
contractor and
right. Yeah.
help with all of
I,
those.
But you're
I had a
based out of
client in
DFW though, right?
We are, but we
yeah,
go
I had a
all
client in the post printing business, and his kind of perennial complaint was they asked him too late about how to design the printed page in the first place because the designer of the printed page forgot what was going to be necessary in terms of turning what was printed into a finished product, which was what my client did. And he said, if they would ask me first,
Yeah,
and I would suspect in your case, Lisa, you'd have the same thing. If you'd asked me first, you wouldn't have to be redoing materials.
that's what we always say is when people are putting LOIs on property, their letter of intent, their offers, we like to get in at that stage. Just call us, tell us what the property address is, we'll look it up, and at least we can give you a budget range, like to plug into your pro forma for your offer, So, and then if you get the deal, if you get best and final and get the deal, then we're ready to go and help you as you need it. We can even do renderings to show on your webinar when you're doing your capital raise. So the earlier we get in, I think the better. Yeah, and it's like playing chess. You have to think like a bunch of steps ahead.
Where's your
What
office?
We're in Arlington, Texas.
Cool. Next
Mhm.
time I'm in Dallas, I'll make an
Yeah,
appointment. So I'm
great.
frequently
Lisa,
there.
I'm curious. With the last name Landry, are you any relation to Tom Landry?
It's way back, but yes, all the Landrys are from Louisiana. I visited for a family reunion, and we went to a cemetery that every headstone was Landry.
Wow.
The weirdest thing.
All right. David has a question.
David,
Yeah, thanks, Jonah. Yeah, I think I missed most of your presentation, but I'll go back and listen to it. All I got was painting your building blue and purple. I just, that's what I got. I wrote that down. So as long as that's okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, go with that, David.
I had a question with the staging, specifically virtual staging for marketing purposes. Wanted to get your take on that, and because we have multifamily, smaller apartments, so forth. So I'm just kind of curious on your take on virtual staging.
Yeah, I think there is a place for it. We don't do virtual staging, but a lot of graphic designers do. That's like a whole different business model. But I do think if it's a smaller property and you're not going to have a model unit, that's a great way to at least show something. You lose the tool of being able to walk inside it with them and talking to them and then feeling it and hearing it, or all those kinds of things. But on a smaller property, I think it could definitely be a good tool. The other thing that I've seen, and we don't do staging, we used to do staging, we had a staging company as well, but we did real staging. And sometimes on a smaller property, we would stage a unit, a model unit, have it photographed, destage it, and then lease it out. But then you have a real unit to show on your website. But yeah, I think there's definitely a place for all of those.
All right, thank
Yeah,
you.
it increases our traffic, I think, almost by 188% when we did the virtual. So
Oh, really?
yeah, it really works.
Your website traffic?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for apartments, specifically.
Yeah. Cool.
Any more questions? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish up here if you'll just hold on.